Hello, everyone. Welcome. It is Wednesday, and we're live for another Masterclass session. Today, we're going to be continuing on our Fantasy Points of Interest series. In that first episode, we took your suggestions in the chat, and we made a couple things. We made a Fey temple, an underwater city. I know that was a popular one. A lot of people wanted to know, how do I make something underwater? A floating city, as well as a thieves' forest, a cultist's camp, a walking tower, and a ghost market. And in this episode, I came up with a handful of prompts. For instance, a Colossus, like the Colossus of Rhodes, a sci-fi city, which we don't even have a sci-fi world style. So I'll kind of show you how to makeshift to make that. And then we'll make stuff as well, like a Mecha Castle and a Steampunk Tower. All of that with the fantasy world style. Hey, Typher Zero. Glad that you're here. And of course, we won't just do these prompts that I mentioned here. If you have any suggestions, feel free to throw them in the chat. No rush. I've already got 4 prompts to work with here. If you guys come up with some before we finish these, I'll make sure to add them in here. I'm not really interested or worried too much about which order we do them, but I just want to give you an idea. So if you have any prompts, feel free to throw those in the chat, and we'll make sure to use it. Oh, a terror circus. That's scary. I like that. Well, throw it in the chat, and then I'll go over it after we finish the first one. So I'll start with a Colossus. Now, in the first episode, I did mention that there are 2 types of perspectives of stamps within the fantasy world style. There's more of a flat orthographic style, which means there's no perspective to it, and there's more of an isometric. It's not pure isometric, but it's similar to. And so just make sure that when you're making your points of interest, there should be some kind of continuity, right? Either they should all be flat facing, or they should all be this more isometric perspective. Now, you can mix and match them, but I do think they kind of look odd. So it's not like a ironclad rule, but I find it kind of helpful to do it that way. Hey, first time chatter, by the way. Ooh, a monastery. I like that. That's cool. A volcano on a floating island. That's awesome. Love that. And a temple that spans multiple floating islands would be nice to get ideas for. I love all of these ideas. So we'll go ahead and probably work on those today. And if we run out of time before I can finish the 4 that I put down, we'll just skip those and we'll go straight over to the suggestions. So first, the Colossus. Now, remember I had mentioned that there are really 2 perspectives, right? You have this more flat-facing, or it's called orthographic. It means there's no perspective of any kind, right? There's no vanishing point. There's no other, just a flat face, right? And the other one, I don't actually have an update on 2.0 right now. All I can say is that we are, fingers crossed, hoping for sometime this summer, but we can't guarantee that. As you know, we don't really set deadlines because we do not want to rush our developers. We don't want to put out a unreleased kind of a buggy launch, and so we're super focused on making sure that all the bugs are out of it before we release it. So this is one of the reasons why we just do not use we don't do deadlines, right? We just don't want anybody to feel rushed, and then it just ruins the quality of the tool, and we just don't want that. So no official deadline, but I can say, hopefully, fingers crossed, sometime this summer. Hey, first time chatter, like 600. The bones of a dead god. I like that. Mega monster. We did something similar to that right here. You can see there's this cultist camp. We could stick with that theme and kind of do that, but you can see the general idea. Just so you know, some of the stamps from the watercolor battle map style, because the line work is thicker, it does work a little bit with the fantasy world style. I know that's something I mentioned in the first episode of this series. So we got here the entrance to a layer of some kind, maybe a portal to another dimension. I love all those ideas. So what I'll do is I'll start with the Colossus first, just to finish my point about the perspectives, and then we'll go right into one of the suggestions, because I really like that. So whenever I'm kind of deciding which one to use, I generally determine it's by, what other perspective of other stamps is. So let's say that I want to make a Colossus, like the Colossus of Rhodes, and I want to maybe put like an floating island that's on top of its back, or maybe it's resting on top of its head. And when I look at my floating islands, like if I type in floating, and then you'll see a series of floating islands here, you'll notice something, that the floating islands are in more of the isometric style, right? And so it might look odd to have my Colossus statue being in orthographic, and then having this being isometric. And so this kind of tells me that I should probably use the isometric style instead, because it will match with this stamp here. So then I can go ahead and just take the island. I'm going to take it up a layer. So if I select it and then just go down, up or down like this, you'll see the slider bar over here on the left side, but also up here at the top. So either one works. And I want to put the Colossus maybe right here like this. And now what's really cool is, let's say that I want it to be like a city. Then you don't have to show every single house that's going to be in the city. You can simply just use a city stamp. Like you could use this stamp right here, just bring the scale up, maybe bring it up a layer, and then you could just put that on top like that, and then you have somewhat of a kind of like a city. Now there is room on there, so it always is kind of nice to add other stuff. That's an older stamp. I think I'll use a newer one. Will there be ever made for watercolor cities? That's a great question, Sol Invictus. I don't know. Good question. I like that idea, and I would say that's a good idea. We should definitely do that. I'm going to go ahead and look up these cities real quick. I'm going to type in city. I'm going to take a look at my options here. Let me go to expand all assets up here at the top here, and then I can kind of look at it and look at my options. And, I'm not really finding any that I want, so I'm just going to go through here and just kind of scroll down and look at the stuff. Look at my options. I kind of like this one right here, this orange one. Like, it's a little bit bigger. It's got more houses to it. I think that looks good there. And what's nice is that with a lot of the newer art, there's like some complementary smaller houses. So if I go over to here, let me look carefully, see if I can find it right here. You'll see that there's the same orange buildings right here. And I can go ahead and individually kind of fill in some of the negative space that remains. So I can kind of maybe put one right here and then put another one right there. And then I can probably fit a smaller one right about, let me see, that one right there might be able to fit right there. So you can kind of maximize the amount there. So what I normally do that helps me is I'll make one giant piece, like that giant city, and then I'll start putting little houses around it, just like you would kind of expect, right? There's a city center, those two arches right there, and then I put that as a centerpiece and then put some houses around it. So not complex, pretty easy stuff when you kind of put it together. And then as always, whenever I'm making it, I always kind of make it much larger so that I can kind of work with it. It's easier to select things. And then you can scale it back down to the proper size. But think of it as like a Colossus city, and then maybe there's like a floating island that's right above it. Go like this. And what's also very, very helpful, when you're having something that's floating, it's nice to add like a shadow. And it doesn't have to be like anything fancy, like some kind of realistic looking shadow. It can just be a simple circle shadow. And the way that I kind of do this is I'll take the shape tool. I'll use a circle brush. I'm going to choose fill, color black, make sure the blur is on. Looks like the blur is already on. And then what I'll do is I'll just make a shadow shape like this. It's set to overlay. I could probably just set it to normal. And then I'll also change the opacity way down, and I'll also bring it below the statue, about this size right here. And what that shadow kind of does is it kind of gives this suggestion that the island is floating. So if ever you have like some kind of floating point of interest on your map, adding just a little shadow beneath it is really helpful. For instance, let me just remove the statue and you can kind of see what I mean. So if I add a little bit of a shadow there, and then my suggestion is the higher up the floating island is, make the shadow smaller. So the closer it is to the ground, you're going to make the shadow bigger. So just kind of a rule of thumb there, that the higher it is up, the smaller the shadow, the lower to the ground, the bigger the shadow. So just kind of remember that when you're putting it together. I'll bring that shadow back down and then put the statue here. Don't even have to add the statue if you don't want to. It could just be a floating island. You can even have like a series of smaller islands kind of floating, making a circle around it. So I can take these smaller islands like this. Let's put one in the front. Let's put another one right about here. I want it to be in the front. And then I'm going to take this other one. I'm going to put it in the back. So I'm going to go back a couple layers, bring it down a couple layers. And that one's a little too big. Let's put another one right about, I'd say right about there. And then I'll place it in the back there. And then you kind of have this ring of islands. And what I'll do is I'll try to make a circle. I'll use those floating islands, and then I'll go ahead and take the smaller floating rocks, these ones right here. And then I'm going to make the illusion of a circle. And if you don't have a good eye for that, you can just use any kind of circle. So I can go to my shape here. I'm going to go with merge shapes, or turn off merge stroke. The blue line doesn't really matter. And I'll go ahead and create my circle like this. I got my blur on, so I'll turn that off so I can see it better. There we go. Bring the size up. Oopsie, not that, my mistake. I meant the stroke size. There we go. Just going to use this as a guide. There we go. And I'll go ahead and place the island there. Place the island there. Place the other island there. There we go. And then I'll quickly use these real quick. Let's go push these up a layer. Like this. And that way I can kind of create the illusion of the ring. Oopsie. Let's go up. Oopsie. Let's go up a layer. My mistake. It has to be in front. There we go. One there. There. And then let's put one right there. Okay. And I think we can now remove that big right there. And then if you want, you can also take these shadows, copy, paste, and just put them underneath the islands like that. There we go. So you can always do that as well. So now you kind of have more interesting setup. And then, of course, you can take those same houses and you can put a couple on the islands. Like you could put one on that island. Oopsie, I think it has to go down a layer too. There we go. Put one on an island there. And then also, let's also put like a tower. And I do believe there should be towers that are similar. Like this one right here. It's got that orange color. That works fine. Let's put that on this one right here. Bring that up. There we go. And then you have a nice tower on this one. And then let's maybe put a smaller house on top of that one. There we go. Now you kind of have this Colossus here. I'm going to go ahead and create a group. And we're going to call it Colossus. There we go. And then you can always work on more terrain underneath of it. You can add waterfalls coming off of it. You could add a summoning circle. Where I put that blue circle, you could also put like a summoning circle there to make it look like there's magic holding it up. Let me do that real quick so I can show you. When you type in summon, you'll notice there are no summoning circles in Fantasy World. But if you go to watercolor battle maps, again, the line work is similar. I can just open this up like this. Let's go with maybe green. Let me see which color works best with that. You know, I kind of like blue. Let's go with that. I'll put the summon circle down. I'll push it down a layer. I'm going to go ahead and push this guy down a layer. And then I'm going to select this summon circle. And then I'm going to use the hotbars. I'm going to put that right in the center there. And then what I'll also do is I'll change that blend mode. I can go to like lighten. Screen is a good one. Even overlay is okay. I think I'll go with lighten. Let me see here. Screen. I think I like lighten better. Let's go with that one. And I can even change the color if I want to change the hue. You know, I kind of like the green. Let's bump up the saturation a little bit. And then we'll call that good. And so you kind of have this summoning circle added to the mix. And I think that works out pretty good. Let's go ahead and just bring the scale up a little bit. And then we'll quickly save it at 96 changes. So I kind of like the Colossus concept. I think that works really well. So the Colossus doesn't walk around carrying the city on its head. No, it doesn't. But the Colossus could be like a city defender, right? When the city feels that it's under attack, then that statue comes to life and it defends the city, which is kind of the myth that I'm, or the lore that I'm kind of putting into it, right? Maybe the city will kind of rise up higher to protect itself, getting out of range, and then that statue will come to life and then start hacking away at anybody that's trying to attack it. I think that's kind of, or the city carries the Colossus. Yeah, that's funny. I like that. All right, so now that we've done that, let's go through the list here and see. I saw a couple on here. Let me go through here. Floating islands. You know, we just kind of covered the floating island stuff with the recent one, so we won't do that. Bones of a dead god. We already have that cultist camp there. Maybe I'll address that a little bit later. I'm going to keep going through the list here. There's quite a few options here. I like the Terror Circus. That one's fun. Keep going through the list here. All right, cool. A city that... Yep. Let me just check over things here. Oh, some kind of portal to another dimension. Let's do that one next. A portal of some kind. So I'll do portal here. And normally when I think of a portal, we're going to have to stick with a theme of some kind. So I'm not sure what kind. It could be like an elven theme. It could be an undead theme. It could be a celestial theme. There's a lot of different types. An orc portal, you know, I like that idea. I'll see what other people say, but I do like the orc one. I think that sounds good. Whenever I'm making any kind of point of interest, I'll start with the terrain first. So what I'll do is I'll create like 2 pillars or 2 towers, and then there's like we can use like a summoning circle made of blood or something that takes you into a different world, like a portal of some kind. So what I'll do first is I'll choose my terrain. So maybe some hills would be good, or maybe a mountain might work well. We'll start with the terrain first. Oopsie, there's an H in my mountain. I'm not sure how that got there. Oop. Sometimes this happens, and I'm also in the wrong style. Let's go back to fantasy world here. There we go. I'm just going to type in mountain. Actually, you know what? Let's stick with mountains. Let's use this one right here. I don't normally use these ones, so maybe it's a good idea to use one. So I'll put one here. I'm going to put another one right about here. I want it to be around the same size. Not perfectly, but close enough. So the 2 towers are going to be on top of here like this. So then I'll go over to orc. And then I'll choose this tower right here. Looks good. I'll go up a layer because it's going to be on top of it. So I'll bring the scale up a little bit. And then I'll put another... Well, you know, I kind of like this a little bit better, actually, because maybe I can put like some kind of glowing ball or something on top of that. That might be kind of interesting. So I'll place that there. And I want to make sure that these 2 are somewhat level with each other. So if I go select both of them, go to the hamburger menu, and then I go over to Align Distribute. I'm going to go ahead and center these vertically. And now they should center perfectly vertically. And that's helpful. Now, when I go to put the whatever's on top of them, they should be aligned. So I'll go ahead and put those 2 right there. Let's go ahead and put them a little closer together. Like this. Okay. And then what I'll do is I'm going to place a summoning circle. Let's go with using a blood one. Say that maybe they have to use some kind of blood magic or something. We'll go back to watercolor battle maps real quick. And I saw there's a couple blood ones, like this one right here. Looks kind of good. Let's put that one right about there. Make sure that it's kind of behind. So I think right about there looks good. It kind of lines up with the towers, so I think that looks kind of nice. And then we'll go ahead and put... let's go ahead and take also some summoning circles. And we'll go ahead and go like this. We're going to put it up a layer. I'm going to put it on top like that. So it looks like it's on top of that. And then what I might want to consider is maybe using a skull. So let's use this skull right here. Let's maybe use these ones. This one looks a little better. I'll put this up a layer. I'm going to place it just right on top like that. I'm going to go ahead and turn the shadow off. I'm going to go ahead and put that. I'm going to bring the saturation down, or the contrast a little down on this one. Bring the brightness up just so it kind of matches a little better. I'm going to put that skull. You know, I don't really care for that. I think I'm going to go with just a regular. I don't want to go with too much. So let's go with this one. Put a regular skull right there. Copy, paste. Actually, let me finish it first. Let's put that one there. Let's also put like a flame of some kind. I'll just go with Inkarnate, and then I'll go through every single one. So obviously I'm using Pro to make this, but I'll put in fire, and then I'll grab maybe a flame from all the different styles. I think flame might be the wrong one. Let's try fire instead. Okay, let's use this one right here. This looks good. And I'm going to place that just like kind of right on top of the skull. What is this on? Layer 1? Let's move this down a couple layers. Layer 2. Push this down a couple layers. There we go. And I'll take this one, change the blend mode. Let's go with screen. And I'll just go ahead and place it right on top like that. And then I'll copy and paste that whole thing and then put it on top right here like this. There we go. Make sure that's lined up. Okay, that looks good so far. And then we will also go back to Fantasy World, and we should create some kind of a staircase or some kind of way for it to go up. So let me go ahead and take a look. You know, ruins is always not a bad idea, just to kind of show that, to give this kind of this illusion that, you know, when you open this portal, it only brings ruin. So some foreshadowing on what it's for by adding some ruins at the base, I think might not be a bad idea. Let's put one right there. Let's put a smaller one. No, first time chatter, no, it isn't available to everyone. If you upload a private asset, it's only available to you. And in fact, the problem is that I noticed is that if you have a map that has a private stamp on it, because we can't verify if that stamp is you made it yourself or not, the person who wants to clone that map that has that private asset, it will delete that private asset. So just kind of know that those stamps are specifically meant for your own personal use. People won't be able to clone a map and then have that private asset on it. Just kind of a heads up. We just can't confirm whether or not, you know, that stamp was made yourself or if it was made by somebody else. We don't really know. Okay, so we'll put some ruins there at the base. I think overall, this is kind of looking good so far. I kind of like the ruins at the base. Maybe some like cracked energy. Someone mentioned that. I kind of like that idea. Let's also add a light source. I always feel it's always good to add some kind of light sources to your POIs because they just kind of help. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and add light. I'm going to go with Inkarnate, and then I can look at all the different light options that I have. Let's go with, I do believe there is a light source actually in the sci-fi battle map style, a red one. I think this will work kind of well. It's kind of a strong light source. Like, it's really odd. So I'm going to place it in the center there like this. I'm going to go through the blend modes, and maybe there's a particular blend mode that will work better. Just know that the blend modes, when you're putting this together, the background texture of the map that I'm working on, that blend mode might work really well on the texture that I'm using. But when you start applying blend modes to a full composition map, you might notice that the blend mode might act differently on a darker texture or a texture with a lot of artifacts. So just kind of keep in mind that blend modes are going to interact with things behind it or below it. Okay, so just kind of remember that. Like, this blend mode might work really well with this texture, but it might not work well when you go to apply that same blend mode to the light on your map that has all these textures on it and stuff. So just kind of a caveat to kind of understand that, okay? All right, so I think that light source, I think works well. We'll go with lighten for now. I can copy and paste it and maybe put like another one, maybe closer to the center. I can go with normal, like this. Maybe I can put like a red in the center there, or I can choose overlay and then put some up here. I can put a red light maybe right here where the skull is. I could always do that. Let's put a light right there on the skull. Copy, paste. Another one here. And then also there is some watercolor battle maps has some really nice blood. And so to kind of show that there is a lot of blood on the ground and stuff, we'll take this blood right here. I'm going to go ahead and place it down first, and then I'll go ahead and change my blend modes to see which one's going to work better. I think overlay works best here. I'll bring the opacity down just a little bit, and I'll kind of place the blood here, and then maybe, I think there's a scrape mark, and so maybe this scrape mark would work really well right here. Which one did I use? Overlay? Go back, normal, overlay. Yeah, that looks good. And that way there's kind of this scrape mark with the portal. I think that looks good. I'll bring the scale up a little bit. So you kind of have this nice orc portal. Just remember, light sources are really, really, really helpful. Okay, so I'll go ahead and create group. We'll call this an orc portal. There's a whole lot more that you could add to it. First, I'll just go ahead and get the labeling done, orc portal. I can go ahead and lock that since I'm not going to be editing that again anytime soon. The shortcut key is like an Alt-L to lock, just so you know, or if you can look for it in the object list in here on the right panel. Okay, so Orc Portal almost done. The other thing that I would kind of add, which is kind of fun, is you can always use like a spell. And I believe it's in Fantasy Battle Maps, but there's this red kind of swirly piece right here, and this might work really well. I could take this and then put it all the way in the back. like this. Let's change the blend mode to, I think, normal, lighten, screen. I kind of liked screen. Let's keep that. And I'll kind of put like this eerie kind of wave kind of taking place. And I can even just spin it to even kind of trip you out a little bit. Whoa. That might be like another little touch that you can add in there. That looks good. Okay, I'll quickly save it. And then we'll go ahead and look at the list here. I saw a couple more in here. A skull dragon. Cool, I like that idea. All right, I'm just kind of going through the list here. I'll go ahead and make one of mine real quick. And then we'll go ahead and we'll make another one in the list. So I'm going to go ahead and make a Steampunk Tower, the one right next to the Orc Portal here. And since I've made these, I'm also going to lock them. So I'll select these two, lock them, and that way I don't accidentally select them. So I'll make that Steampunk Tower. A city built inside a skeleton. Love that too. Lots of skeleton stuff. That's an interesting one. Wonder why those are so popular. They must be in a lot of campaigns then. Interesting. I like that. We'll go ahead and put that in after we do our Steampunk Tower. So, when it comes to a particular style that we don't have, like we don't have steampunk art for fantasy world, you just have to kind of makeshift for a lot of things. And so what I'll generally kind of do is I'll use like a gear from the fantasy battle map style. And you kind of just pick the gear of your choice. And there's that trick that I like to use of foreshortening. And remember, when you do your foreshortening for a stamp, it has to be at 0 degrees first. And that way these hotbars show up. Watch what happens when I move it just 0.5 degrees. Those hotbars go away. So just know that. And then also, if it's too small, the hotbars might also not show up, just to let you know. So you have to scale it up a little bit. So I'm going to do foreshortening by grabbing the hotbar. I'm just going like this. And I'm going to create the base for like a floating, some kind of floating city that's going to be on top of this gear right here. So then I'm going to go back to Fantasy World. Like this, we'll open this up, and then I can kind of choose a stamp that I want to put on top of the gear. I think there is a good circular, like, fortress town that's around here somewhere. I'll see if I can find that in here. It's like a fortified city. Let's see if I can find that. I think that might work really well. The dwarven stamps might also work really well, like this one right here. It kind of makes sense. Dwarves kind of fit into the category of steampunk a little bit. So you could always do that as well. Like just place that right there on top of the gear itself. Then you kind of have this gear on top of it like that. We might want to consider desaturating it like that. You'll notice that the city itself, that city stamp, is kind of got a grayish kind of overtone to it. So I can kind of change this to a gray color. The black lines are kind of thick, so I'll bring the contrast down a little bit. And now that kind of matches a little better. And I think what I'll do is I need to change the foreshortening on this a little bit. And then one other thing I've kind of noticed about the city is that there's nothing underneath that cog. So I might want to consider putting something underneath that as well. I could just use this. You could just easily just use this thing right here, this compass. I can just desaturate it. I can bring the brightness up a little bit, bring the contrast down, and then do that foreshortening trick. I'll just put it down a layer like this, and I just want to put it underneath so that way it's kind of hiding what's underneath there. So that way I have that. So that works kind of well. So I have that. And then I might want to consider adding some more gears and stuff to it. So I'll go ahead and select this gear right here. And one thing I might want to consider doing is taking another gear like this, as you would kind of expect how gears work. They connect to each other with gears. And let's put it like another one, maybe, let's put it in the back behind it. Like this, and I'll stick with my dwarven theme. So maybe I want to put some kind of dwarven structure on top of that gear. Like this. Let's see here. This right here works kind of well. I like that one. We could use a tower. Let's place that there so at least I have it available to me. And then maybe even towers are not always a bad thing to kind of put on there. What's the scale of this stamp, just to make sure that I have continuity? 129. About there. And then I can place this one tower just right on top of that gear, and then I can put this structure right on top of that gear, like that. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go down more layers, and I want to show maybe there's layers of gears, so I'll bring the brightness down a little bit. Oopsie, my mistake. Let me grab that gear there, bring the brightness down. And I'm going to kind of create this illusion that there are kind of gears underneath of it. So I'll go over here. We'll put one gear like that. And then we'll put maybe another one right there. Oopsie, I have a shadow on. Let's turn that off. There we go. Put one there. Let's put another one right there. And let's put maybe a small one. Let's go with a small one in the back, right about there. Oopsie, let's push this up one layer. There we go. That looks a little better. There we go. And then you kind of see that there's some gears kind of underneath of it. I don't really care for that being there. And I'll maybe move that over to there. Let's move that gear. Let's move this one as well. I think that might look better. Not sure. Yeah, there we go. It kind of looks like the gears are kind of coming out of the ground there. All right, there we go. And then, of course, you know, as always, you want to use a shadow of some kind. So I'll just copy and paste and steal this shadow here. Just paste it there to show that it's kind of closer to the ground. I'll make the shadow a little bigger. There you go. And it's a steampunk city instead of a tower. So I'll have to change the name to Steampunk City. But you get the general idea on kind of how I put it together, right? And then, of course, if you're going to have steampunk, you're going to expect a lot of steam, right? So we probably want to take smoke like this. In fact, this one right here might work better because it's got some of the stuff already in it. And then I'll go ahead and place this all the way up. And we'll place a couple of these smoke kind of coming out of here. And then we'll obviously take a couple of these as well. And then I'll probably place them around the gears itself like this. Let's put one also in the background behind like this. There we go. So I got one in the background like that. And then let's have one kind of coming up like, let's say, I already got that one in use. Let's say this one right here. There we go. In the back like that. There we go. So you kind of have this nice steampunk city or tower. It could be a tower. If you want it to be a tower, we could take this and kind of stack multiple of these together to kind of get the tower effect. So I'll go here. I'll copy and paste that. Do it again. Copy and paste. Do it again. And then I can get that tower kind of effect that I was kind of going for there. And then, of course, you could add something on top of the tower. It could be a statue. It could be like a ball or some kind. One thing that you could do that I really like is you can use... let me see, is there any heraldry? I want to try to stick with as much of the fantasy world as possible. I know I deviate off to different stuff, but don't want to do it too much. You could put like a crystal right here at the top. And this kind of crystal helps to kind of power much of the city there. There we go. So now we still got a tower going on there. And I always like to add like a light source or something. So we'll go ahead and choose a light source. Let's see here. Oh, there was a spell. Let's just use one of those. You know, I don't think I like that. Let's go back. Spell. I'm going to go outside of the style again. I see battle maps. Let's use maybe this one right here. And then just kind of put that on top. That way there's kind of like some kind of glow going on there. Let's change the blend mode to maybe screen. And I'll bring the size down. I think that looks good there. There we go. And we'll call it Steampunk Tower. Create group. All right. Easy stuff. City built inside a skeleton. Love that idea. Okay, so we got the Steampunk Tower. I'm going to go ahead and lock that. I no longer need to... And we're at 64 changes, so I'll quickly save. And then we'll work on the next one. An invasion portal. Cool. Cracked terrain with magic. Oh, I love that. City built inside a skeleton. Whew, that's going to be a tough one, but I think it is doable. Let's go to our cultist camp over here, And we'll go ahead and just draw some stuff from here, like some of these spikes. This here, we're going to copy and paste that. And then we're going to move it over to here. All right. And then we're going to go select this, and we're going to call it City Inside Skeleton City. Let's call it that. Or Bone City. Let's try that. Now, there aren't any like skeletons or bones in the fantasy world style that I know of. So these all come from the fantasy, come from watercolor battle maps, just to let you know. All right, so the way that I would kind of put this together is that I would, if it's going to be, I would make it isometric. So then we can like rotate it like this, and that way we can kind of see the span of it. And then we can maybe use a skull for a head. And we can use a different one, like we could use this one instead of that other skull. Like that, and then we'll put it like right here. Skull, and then I think these right here, let me check. Okay, cool, we've got a hand there. We've got, ooh, these are kind of nice, these right here. Let's put that one down, that one down. Okay, I think these will work fine here. We're going to use these. And what I want to do is kind of create this illusion of like some kind of rib cage. And what we're going to have is the rib cage looks like it's been split open. And then inside of that rib cage of those bones is where we're going to put a lot of the city stuff. So I'll go ahead and put the skull maybe like this. And then we'll go ahead and use these right here, the single one. I'll put one, and I might want to do some warping as well. Copy and paste, go to transform, and we'll change them so some of them have different lengths and different heights. Copy, paste. Let's change the width of this one. Make it really wide, but make it about that size. Looks good. Then we have various ones. And then what I'll do is I'll go ahead and create like the opening to a rib cage. Let's make that one slightly bigger. Let's make that one about like that. That one there. And then what I can do is I can just go ahead and copy all of these. Copy, paste. I'm going to go ahead and quickly just create group. And then I can go and just flip the whole thing like that. And then I'll ungroup. And now I have kind of this opening here like this. Let's go ahead and put it in the back. Kind of like that. There we go. And I might even get rid of the spine itself. We might not even be able to need to even keep that. Oh, a beating heart. Oh, I love that idea. I do think there is a heart in, there actually is a heart in the fantasy, in the world style. We might use that. Towns settle on floating islets with broad bridges between them. We've done a lot of floating islands already. What I can do is I'll go back to the already existing floating islands and I'll put some I'll put some bridges on them so you can see what I mean. I think the skull is a little underwhelming, to be honest. And so what I'm going to end up doing is I'll probably take some of this stuff and I'll put it on top of the skull itself. Like this, I'll copy and paste that one. Go like this. Put that on there. And then let's take maybe this one right here. And then we can maybe add some kind of like teeth or jaw. Like this will be like the teeth. So I'll copy, paste. This will be like the jaw. Right here, and then I'll go ahead and take this one right here, copy, paste, and put that one just like there, like that. Now we have like our jaw. I think that kind of comes together a little better, so we'll go ahead and put that there. So you kind of have the jaws of the creature, the curve there. Let's go ahead and add in just a couple more of these, copy, paste. Oopsie, my mistake. Copy, paste, we're gonna flip it. Okay. There are no ribs in the set that I know of. All right, there we go. So, oopsie, I missed one. There we go. Okay, it looks okay. I'm not 100% satisfied with this piece right here. It kind of just is annoying. I don't really care for it, but I think it's going to be okay. So I'll go ahead and move this here, put it there, and then we'll start put some buildings in there. And I think we already used these kind of tents in here already, so I don't really want to do that. So what I might want to consider using is maybe a different, a city style, a city type of map, a city kind of stamp, and then one that has coordinating or has the individual buildings that I can use to fill it out. So I think what we can do is use this purple city if I can see if I can find it in here. Let me take a look here. There's this purple city. Here's the purple buildings. I'm going to put them right there just to make sure that they're in there. And then there should be a purple city. Let me see if I can find that. Let me expand all the assets. There we go. Should be a little bit easier to find now. There it is right there. So now I have that centerpiece, which is going to take up most of the room, and then I have these individual buildings here. So I can go ahead and just place like the main city, part of the city, like in the center of it, like this. Just make sure, like that. And I can even just get rid of this piece right here, just kind of getting in my way. So I'll add that there, and then I'll take this piece right here, and I can start filling out like this. And what I'll do is I'll make a relative shape of the city to be like kind of the shape of the creature itself. Oh, I should put these down a layer, by the way. There we go, because it's in the back, right? I want to make sure that these are behind, like that. There we go. So that way they're kind of covering them up. Put them all the way back at layer -5, since they're probably going to be the furthest things back. There we go. And then I can go ahead and now place those. And then I'll kind of create some of the body like this, and then maybe some of the tail of the creature like this. And I can even maybe create like the wings as well. Give me a second here. Let me go ahead and remove this, remove that. Actually, I shouldn't even remove them. What I should do is just place them somewhere else. I'll place them like this. And let's actually have these kind of be in front like this, so that way they're kind of overlapping it. That way it kind of looks like they really are inside of it. I think that will work much better. Yeah, that looks better. We place that right there in the front, and this one needs to be in the back. There we go. Perfect. That looks much better. And I can copy and paste a couple of these in the back as well. There we go. Let's remove that one. Let's also maybe make like an arm there. We'll place like an arm kind of like that. And then I do believe there is a hand. And so then we can go ahead and take the hand like this. We'll make it a little bit smaller. And kind of just place that. Let me flip it real quick. Flip. There we go. Let's have it go inward, kind of like that. There we go. All right. And then I can go ahead and just take this like that. And then you kind of have this city here. And I would take more of these bones right here and kind of have them here. And then we maybe want to create this illusion of like the tail tip kind of going like this. Copy paste. There we go. Last one. Something like that. Okay, I think that looks okay. Not my first choice. I mean, I wish we actually just had a city with the bones and everything, but until we get that, this is kind of the makeshift way that I would go about it. So let's go ahead and bring the brightness up a little bit. Where are we at for time? Oh, wow. Already it's been 43 minutes, but we got a lot done. Yeah, they does look very sad, don't they? One thing we can do too is we can also add in a light source in the eyes. Might not be a bad idea. Go light. We'll go fantasy battle maps here. Let's go with this. And then let's change the color. Let's go with purple. And then let's change the blend mode to normal. And then I can place these. Copy paste. Right inside of there. Let's change the blend mode. Oh yeah, I kind of like that a little bit better. That looks nice. Okay, there we go. All right, create group. Have this Bone City. We've done an Orc Portal, a Steampunk Tower, Bone City, a Colossus. Let's go ahead and make one more because we only have about 15 minutes left. So I'll quickly save and then we'll move on to the next one. I'll be honest, I don't really care much for that city. I'd have to sit down and kind of come up with a better design personally for like a Bone City, but I think for now that will kind of do it. Let's go ahead and quickly make a sci-fi city. Let's make a Mecha Castle. I think that will probably take less time. A sci-fi city might take a little bit longer. I don't want to run out of time. So I'll make a Mecha Castle. And I'll use the, I'm going to use the Eastern stuff for that. So whenever I'm kind of making like a mecha or something like that, I want to choose like the main body of the castle. So you have this nice castle right here. So think of this as like the body itself, right? And then from there, I'll probably want to create maybe some kind of shoulders. So I could use one of these gates to kind of represent a shoulder pad. So I can bring the gate up, rotate it a little bit like that, and then take another gate and then put it in the back. And then just to show that it's behind, I'll bring the brightness down a little bit. So it's a little bit darker. So I'm using contrast. So now I have these kind of shoulder pads. Now I can kind of make some legs. Maybe we'll give it like 4 legs. And then I could use particular stamps to kind of make that. Like I could use these towers right here. These might work well. So I'll bring it down a layer. And I'll push it down like that. And then I'll push one down another layer. And to kind of show movement, I'll have the legs kind of rotated just a little bit to kind of show that it's moving. Like that. And I'll just go ahead and copy and paste. Put another one right there. Let's maybe move this one a little bit more forward. I'll copy and paste and put another one right there. And let's maybe straighten this one out a little bit like that. So that way it kind of looks like it has like a spider-like feel to it. And then I'll copy and paste one more so I can see the back one. Let's put it right about there. And then of course I'll bring the brightness down to show that it's further in the back. There we go. That looks good. That looks okay to me. Let's also kind of maybe add like maybe some kind of like a nose or maybe like some kind of gun in the front. So I'll go ahead and add this tower just right there. Will act as like kind of like a gun or some kind. And then we'll go ahead and add the last bits, which is we'll make some kind of towers. You know, I kind of like the idea of using these as the shoulder pads. I'm not sure. I mean, those gates do work well, but I'm wondering if the shoulder pads might work better. Let's try that. There we go. Yeah, let's use this as kind of like the shoulder pad. So I'll copy paste. Oopsie. Copy paste. Go down a layer, bring the brightness down on it to kind of show it's in the back. That's a little too dark. I'd say you want it to be noticeable enough. So we'll go with that. And then I'll go ahead and start putting together some kind of arm of some kind. Not sure. I could use these again right here like this. And then kind of make like these fingers. So I could go like this and then like this and then like this. And that kind of represent like fingers. Like that. And then I'll go ahead and group this. Create group. There we go. Okay, like that. And then I'll go ahead and take this, copy and paste, do it again. Select them all, bring the brightness down. Okay. So now I kind of have like this mecha-like castle. And then of course you should always grab that shadow. So I think this is kind of a mecha castle. Let me move that to see what it looks like without it. I think it actually looks better like that. Let me try this square one. Would this work better? Oh, you know, I think that works a little better right there. There we go. Yeah, it looks much, much better. Okay, cool. And then, of course, I'll probably want to go ahead and take that Steampunk Tower, grab that shadow, copy, paste it, and then put it underneath. Like that, all the way down. There we go. And then I think what I'll do is also bring the opacity down just a hair. There we go. And this is to kind of show that it's elevated off the ground, right? When you kind of look at it at first, it just looks like it's just sitting like that. But with that shadow, it kind of helps to make it go up. Yes, I am actually AI. It's Mati, and it's the A and the I part that you need to focus on, right? Mati. All right, so I think overall this looks kind of cool. I like the overall design of it. There's more you could do to it, but you can do these mecha style castles with all kinds of different styles. Like I've made an elven one. I've made a human one. You can make dwarven like mecha castles. I think I have a whole series dedicated to it. So definitely go check it out in the profile if you want to figure out how to make that stuff. And I think once we finish doing all of these, so one more episode, we'll probably be able to finish them all. We'll go ahead and do like official episodes where like we'll make nothing but sci-fi or nothing but steampunk or nothing but like a Warhammer 40K type of style thing or whatever, right? So we'll come up with different types of things for the future. I don't want to have them all just be fantasy. That's why I wanted to fit in the sci-fi, mecha, steampunk, because I know that, you know, we don't have an official steampunk or mecha style, for fantasy world, but you can totally put them together. So lots of cool stuff. I'll even show you how to make vehicles and stuff. I think I have a couple of those as well. So I'll quickly save it and we'll call it good. I appreciate it. We don't really have enough time to make any more, but I really enjoyed putting these together. And just next month, we'll have another in the series. We'll probably finish these up. Make sure that you have tons of ideas. If you don't come up with them, that's fine. My brain can come up with 1,000 prompts, so it's all good. I don't want to put any pressure on you. All right, so I'm looking forward to seeing you all on Friday, and I believe that is going to be a stream on Light and Shadow for your battle maps. So I'm really looking forward to that. Thanks, everyone, for all your suggestions. I appreciate it. And when this is all done, I'll make this available for... I'll make this available for cloning. Oh, looks like Pedro just asked that. I'll make sure to put the map link in the final episode so that you guys can clone and use this for your own use, okay? Also, when 2.0 comes out, by the way, you'll be able to save these as a custom stamp and then add them across multiple maps, as well as copy and paste, okay? Because right now, when people clone these maps, you can't really use a lot of these points of interest unless you build the map on it. And so when 2.0 comes out, that problem will be resolved. You'll be able to copy and paste or save as a composite stamp or a group, and then you'll be able to use them across maps. So looking forward to that. All right, everybody, please stay safe and healthy, and merry map making. Take it easy, everybody.